Disclaimer: this story explores mature emotional themes, including complex family dynamics and personal regret. It does not contain explicit material. Viewer discretion is advised. It all started on a humid summer afternoon, the kind where the air feels heavy and the world moves slower than usual. You know the type, the sort of day that lingers in your memory, even years later, because something happened that changes everything. For me and my cousin, Jake, that day was the beginning of a secret that still gnaws at me, the kind of secret that you want to bury but can't. Jake is older than me by a few years, confident and reckless in a way I both admired and feared. He always had that wild streak, the kind that made adults sigh and shake their heads, but also the kind that made me want to follow him, to be part of whatever trouble he was planning. We grew up in a small rural town, where the family's horse, Midnight, was practically a member of the household. Midnight was huge, black as night, with a temper as fiery as the summer sun. Everyone warned us to stay clear, but Jake and I? We thought we knew better. That day, with the sky barely hinting at the coming sunset, Jake had one of those ideas. "Let's do something no one expects," he said, that mischievous grin spreading across his face. I hesitated for a second, a knot forming in my stomach, but the pull of the moment was stronger than my caution. So we snuck out to the barn together, just the two of us, the sun warming our backs and the promise of something wild ahead. Midnight was restless, pawing the ground, nostrils flaring. Jake seemed to sense it and whispered something I didn't quite catch. What happened next was a blur of adrenaline and bad decisions. We climbed onto Midnight's back, not for a simple ride like always, but to try something we hadn't dared before, a stunt we'd seen in some old video, something dangerous and stupid. My heart pounded as Midnight reared, the world tilting beneath us, and suddenly everything went wrong. I won't lie, it felt exhilarating at first, the rush of being on the edge, defying all the rules. But the moment the horse bolted, everything spiraled into chaos. Midnight was terrified, thrashing wildly, and the barn, the fields, even the familiar woods around us became a maze of panic. I screamed, Jake shouted, and all I could think was how badly this was going to end. When we finally stopped, and trust me, it wasn't where we intended, the silence that followed was worse than the noise. Midnight was shaking, sweat pouring down his coat, and Jake's face was pale, something broken behind his eyes. I realized then that whatever thrill we'd chased had cost us more than we imagined. The regret settled in deep, like a shadow that won't leave. That's when things got complicated. The kind of complicated that no one talks about. Because what happened next didn't just change our summer, it changed how I saw Jake, how I saw myself, and how the family, the one we thought we could trust, started unraveling around us. I can't say I'm proud of what we did, and I sure as hell can't say I'd do it again. But the truth is, some moments, once lived, can't be undone. And sometimes, regret isn't just about the act, it's about the secrets that follow. What happened with Midnight that day was only the beginning. And now, looking back, I'm left wondering, how far can a mistake take you before it consumes everything? The days after that reckless afternoon with Midnight felt like walking through fog. Jake and I pretended nothing had changed, but the silence between us was heavier than any argument. We grew up side by side, our families intertwined like the roots of the old oak trees behind the barn, but that summer, something shifted, an unspoken tension hanging thick in the air every time we crossed paths. Jake was always the risk-taker, the one who pushed boundaries, but I never thought our bond could crack under the weight of a single moment. Yet here we were, both avoiding the truth we feared would break everything. My family has always been tight-knit, especially around the horse. Midnight wasn't just an animal, he was a symbol of tradition, responsibility, and the legacy my grandfather left behind. My parents had warned us countless times about treating him with respect, but Jake's impulsiveness tangled with my own curiosity led us straight into that danger we didn't understand. It wasn't just about the stunt, it was about what it revealed, our need to escape the roles we were expected to play, the quiet pressures of family expectations and hidden resentments that no one voiced. At night, I found myself wrestling with guilt and confusion. Was I just as reckless as Jake? Or was I trying to hold on to something slipping through my fingers? The regret wasn't just about what happened with Midnight, it was about the fracture growing between us, a rift fueled by secrets we didn't dare admit. There was something else too, a shadow in Jake's eyes that I couldn't place, fear, maybe, or something darker. Whatever it was, it made me question how well I really knew him. And if we couldn't trust each other now, what hope was there for the family we both cared about? The question lingered like the smell of hay after a storm. Could we fix this? Or had we crossed a line with no way back? It wasn't long before people started asking questions. Midnight had been skittish ever since that day, refusing food, flinching at shadows, his eyes darting toward us whenever we came near like he remembered everything. My uncle, Jake's father, was the first to notice something wasn't right. He didn't say much, but his glances lingered too long. And Jake? He was unraveling. He stopped coming by the house. He didn't answer my texts. I'd catch glimpses of him across the fields or in town, but he always looked like he was somewhere else entirely, lost, haunted. One afternoon, I saw him arguing with someone behind the feed store. A man I didn't recognize. They were too far away to hear, but I saw Jake shove the guy, his voice sharp and desperate. Something was going on, something way beyond a bad decision with a horse. Back home, things weren't any better. Midnight's condition was becoming a family concern. My dad started whispering to my mom late at night, saying things like, if that horse can't work the land again, we're in trouble, and Jake's been off the rails since last year anyway. That last part stuck with me. What happened last year? I started piecing things together, odd comments, moments Jake never talked about. A job he left suddenly. A rumor about money missing from his uncle's mechanic shop. And now this secret we were both carrying, it felt like it was pulling everything down with it. But I still didn't know the full truth. And Jake sure as hell wasn't talking. The more I pressed, the more Jake pulled away. And the more the silence grew, the more Midnight suffered. That horse was the only one who saw what really happened. And if things kept spiraling like this, someone, or something, was going to break. The stakes weren't just emotional anymore. They were real. And I could feel it, something big was coming. I just didn't know if we'd survive it. 3 days ago, Midnight collapsed in the pasture. It was early morning when I found him, sides heaving, legs trembling, soaked in sweat. His breathing was shallow, eyes wide and wild like he was stuck in that day all over again. My chest tightened as I called for help, voice cracking with panic I couldn't hide. My dad came running, then my uncle. Jake didn't show up. Not even a call. The vet arrived hours later. Stress-induced exhaustion, she said, but her tone had a bite to it. And someone's been working this horse way past his limit. No one spoke. My uncle's jaw clenched, and he looked straight at me. What did you two do? I froze. Later that night, I drove to Jake's trailer. I wasn't going to knock. I was going to break the door down if I had to. I needed answers. And this time, I wasn't leaving without them. Jake opened the door, shirtless, dark circles under his eyes, the smell of whiskey and hay clinging to him like guilt. I know why you're here, he said before I could speak. But it's not just about the horse anymore. He stepped aside and let me in. The place was a mess, mail unopened, pictures face down on the counter. And then he pulled out something I didn't expect, an envelope. Thick, sealed, and stained at the corners like he'd held it for too long. It's about what I owe, he said. And who's coming to collect? What did you do, Jake? I asked, but my voice didn't sound like mine. He just stared at the floor. I thought we could fix it with one big bet. I never meant to drag you into it. Or the horse. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Jake looked up at me, hollow-eyed. They gave me a deadline, he said. Tomorrow night. Jake didn't sleep that night. I could tell by the way he kept checking the window every 10 minutes, flinching at headlights passing by like they were meant for him. I sat across from him at the cluttered kitchen table, watching the storm roll in, both of us silent except for the ticking of the crooked clock on the wall. You still haven't told me who's after you, I said finally. He didn't answer right away. He just slid the envelope closer to me. Inside was cash, not much, maybe a few thousand. Crumpled bills, a few marked. Underneath it, folded once, was a wrinkled photo. It was of midnight, mid-run, the edges torn, the ink faded but clear enough to see that it wasn't just any photo. It was from the day we did the stunt. Someone had been watching us. I looked up, heart pounding. What the hell is this? Jake's jaw clenched. They said they'd forgive the dead if I got them something valuable. Midnight? Jake nodded slowly. But not for racing. For breeding. They'd seen what he could do. They thought he was some kind of wild bloodline. They offered double if I could get him across the state line by the end of the month. His voice cracked. I agreed. Thought I'd borrow him. Just long enough to square things. You were going to sell the family horse? Just loan. I didn't know they'd watch us. I didn't know they'd follow through when I tried to back out. I pushed back from the table, every part of me trembling. You risked everything, the horse, the farm, us, for a backdoor deal? You think I had a choice? He snapped, standing up. You think I wanted this? I was drowning. Dad cut me off after the job mess, and the mechanic shop was a bust. I owed more than I could ever repay. This, he gestured around the wreck of a trailer, this is all I had left. My head spun. I thought I'd known him, the troublemaker, sure, but not a thief. Not a liar. That's when we heard the tires crunch outside. Jake went still. He moved to the window, pulling back the curtain an inch. His face went pale. They're here. I ran to the door and looked out. A black SUV idled by the tree line, its engine still running. Two men stepped out, one tall and broad-shouldered, the other short with a thick scar running across his chin. They've been watching the farm, Jake muttered. I thought I lost them last week. You brought this to our doorstep. I didn't mean to, he shouted. But now they know midnight's not usable. They'll want something else. The realization hit us at the same time. Me. They knew we were both involved. Maybe not equally, but enough. Enough to make me a bargaining chip if things went sideways. I grabbed my phone and dialed my dad. Voicemail. The signal was weak. The SUV door opened again. A third figure emerged, a woman this time. She looked different. Out of place. Professional. She didn't walk like a thug. She walked like someone in charge. Jake's face twisted in confusion. She's not one of them. She approached the trailer slowly, arms raised slightly, like a negotiator, or a trap. Then she spoke. My name is Marlene Cross. I'm with the State Agricultural Investigations Unit. I'm not here to hurt you. We exchanged a look. Jake Turner, she said, her voice calm but firm, we've been investigating the illegal sale and trafficking of genetically modified livestock. Midnight is part of a federally registered bloodline. Do you have any idea what that means? I blinked. She kept going. It means the horse your grandfather raised, the one you tried to loan across state lines, is government property. His sire was part of a black market breeding program flagged years ago. You were being watched long before your debt started piling up. Jake sat down, stunned. And you, she said, turning to me, you've been silent. That stunt you pulled? Someone caught it on a trail cam. You both triggered every alarm we had left on that horse. We weren't just watching for thieves. We were watching to see who still knew what that horse was. I couldn't breathe. Why? Why wouldn't anyone tell us? Because your grandfather signed an NDA and sealed the bloodline under federal protection. Midnight was never supposed to be bred, sold, or pushed to physical extremes. And now he's collapsing in fields and scaring livestock. Jake buried his face in his hands. I'm not here to arrest you, she said. Not yet. But if Midnight dies? That's a federal offense. We're giving you one last chance to come clean and help us expose the network who approached you. The silence in the room was like a vacuum. You want me to inform on them? Jake asked, voice barely audible. If you don't, she said, stepping back toward the door, they'll come after you anyway. And they won't be wearing badges. She left without another word, and the SUV disappeared into the storm. Jake stood slowly. I never meant for any of this to touch you. Well, it did, I said, hollowly. Midnight could die. We could lose the farm. And you're sitting on a secret that no one in this family ever told me. I'll turn myself in, he said. No, I replied. We go together. We fix this together. But first, I grabbed my keys and coat. We check on the horse. If there's one thing left in this mess that's still worth saving, it's him. As we stepped into the rain, I couldn't help but feel the weight of what we'd uncovered. This wasn't about a wild stunt anymore. It was a legacy, buried under lies, brought to the surface by desperation. And someone out there still wanted Midnight. And now, they knew we knew. The rain hadn't stopped when we got to the barn. Midnight lay on his side, his breathing shallow but steady. I dropped to my knees beside him, whispering softly, hoping he could still hear me, still recognize the voices that raised him. Jake stood behind me, motionless, like the weight of everything he'd done had finally crushed him. He didn't say a word, just knelt beside Midnight and rested a hand on his flank. His fingers trembled. I'm sorry, he murmured. Not just for this. For everything. The vet arrived minutes later, followed by Marlene and a state agent. They moved quickly, injecting fluids, checking vitals, speaking in clipped, urgent tones. It wasn't until Midnight let out a soft grunt and shifted his weight that I let out the breath I'd been holding for hours. He's going to pull through, the vet said. But barely. Marlene turned to Jake. That's your second chance walking. Jake nodded, eyes glassy. I'll testify. I'll give you names, contacts, whatever you need. And the farm? I asked. The bloodline, the deal my grandfather made, what happens now? She paused. That's for the department to decide. But if you cooperate, there's a chance the horse stays where he belongs. Relief swept through me like a wave, but it didn't wash away everything. Jake would still face charges. Our family name was going to be dragged through something it had barely survived before. But as Midnight stood, weak but defiant, I realized something. We'd cracked the truth wide open, and somehow, through the storm, something sacred remained. Then Marlene handed me a sealed file. Your grandfather left this for you. He said you'd need it one day. I looked at Jake. He blinked. You weren't the only one kept in the dark.